So recently I bought a new bike and I poked a hole in it when my Shimano crank cracked in half, the Holotech Recall. When the crank cracked, it put a hole in my bike. So what this video is about is basically my experience with the Predator carbon fiber repair kit. There's some really good videos on it, so I'm not going to really go over that too much, but I'll just go over the steps in general and then point to them because they go through it more in depth. To describe the issue, if you look here, that's the hole. The crank came around and basically hit that when it cracked in half. The problem I have with doing a full carbon install or repair, which means cut it and put an insert in it, is I have to take the bike apart. It makes it very expensive. So this idea is that what we'll do is we'll sand between here and here, take it down to the injured carbon, layer the carbon, and then pull it back up. That's it. So this is the kit for the Predator cycling. It comes in a box, it has directions in it, but the YouTube is much better, I think. That's pretty small print if you can't see very well. You got the cups to mix, they give you some gloves, there's the epoxy, and then there's the carbon. I'll be using the Cling Seal Glad Wrap in order to wrap my bike to make sure that everything stays clean. I have my own gloves, and then I have a heat gun and then a pair of clips just to hold the shrink. To see the affected carbon, it's good to do a coin test just to see what it looks like. So here's what it sounds like for good carbon. And then if you look here, what will happen is there's a little soft spot there. So you can see it's a very soft spot. It's not all the way through. When it poked a hole in it, I wanted to make sure I took care of it before it became a real problem. So let me zoom in a little bit. You can see the crack isn't that significant. It's almost superficial, but it is deep. And so I know that after a couple rides, that's going to fracture and go further. So I want to make sure I take care of this before there's any other issue. All right, so real quick, one of the reasons why I decided to use Predator cycling versus going to a carbon shop was, one, it's a small nick, and I think I can do it pretty cleanly because there's not that much fracture. Number two was the disassembly of the bike. In order to go to a carbon repair shop, everything has to come off the bike, which seems maybe not as significant to some people, but like it usually means new hoses and new bar tape and new potential things you break or brake pads and all that stuff. So I really wanted to keep the bike as assembled as possible without trying to affect it when I make this repair. As you can see, I've saran wrapped the affected area. So now what I can do, and you can see like I'm not using a bike stand. The reason I'm not using a bike stand is because this is a very unique tube, and the tube is unique enough where I can't really put it on my bike stand very easily, and then it'll also be really high. I kind of like it lower, so I just have it resting on carpet, and then I basically have everything kind of taped off so that I won't get at it. I just did notice I'm going to put a little bit more on here of saran wrap because it is a little bit open there. But so I have black taped it so that the area is only between here and here that I'll be working on. So I'll be sanding all the way down here and all the way over here, getting this down to the rough carbon, and then once I do that, then we'll start working on the epoxy. So it does take a significant amount of sanding for just the 120 grit to get it down to that bare metal or bare carbon. I would recommend that when you tape, I think it said it in the directions, but I'm not quite sure, you don't tape from here to there, you tape from here to there. That way when you want to unwrap it and get to the affected area, it's a whole lot easier. I went the opposite. I went from here to here, so I had to really pick at it to come back out to see where I was at. You can see there's a lot of dust, significant amount of carbon that comes off the bike. So you want to make sure you really clean, you have a decent area. As you can see, I had to kind of do a different setup due to the fact that I couldn't put it on my bike stand. So it's just laying here, and then what I'm using is my feet to kind of hold it stable when I need to. Works out pretty good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the next grit, which is a 220, to kind of sand it down. As you can see, it doesn't really look, obviously it's very superficial. There really is not any significant cracking. But if you listen, it's still a ton, it's just soft right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to do about 1.5 inches here, and then cover it up from about here to there, 2 layers. And then what we'll do is we'll heat shrink it and treat it overnight. Okay, so what I did is I now know I need an 1-inch piece and I need an 1.5 inch piece. So what I did was I took and put marks on a board so that I have my starting point. So here's my 0, and then here's to 1 inch, and here's to 1.5 inches. Then what I had to do is I had to figure out next was to wrap the entire chainstay, how much material I would need. I'll need 4¼ inches, so I put a mark here so that once I cut this, I can cut across. What they tell you in the tutorial is you want the grains, so that the fiber, which the fiber is coming out here, so the fiber is going this way. So the crack, so you should be cutting from this piece this way so that the strength is going that way. All right, so we're gonna give this a try. I have a real sharp razor blade that I'm using currently. Don't suggest using anything dull. This stuff separates real easy. And this looks like it's basically tape to hold that carbon fiber in place. So this will be coming off in order to do that, and I measured for that. All right, so the next piece will be 1.5 inches. So I'm starting from here. I don't believe this is an exact science, obviously, because it's all about your measurement. It's about whatever you sanded. All right, there we go. 2 nice pieces. So the rest of this can go in the kit now. I now have my 2 pieces that I'll be using. All right, now that I've actually taken, I don't know where the other piece went. Now that I've actually taken the the alcohol swab to it, I'm going to be next. I'll be preparing the epoxy, which they have directions on how to do it. You can either do the whole bottle, or you can do it by parts, and then I'll be applying it on here and I'll record that. One little trick, make sure that when you do your tape, you leave a little cut end. Makes it so much easier to remove this tape than it does trying to find that little end. So just leave a little bit out for yourself. So next part will be the applying. Well, just because it's me and the way I work, I wanted to see how much was actually in one of these bottles. So if you wanted to do more than a 3-to-1, you wanted to use this again for a second use, meaning that I have another carbon break anywhere. You can use this carbon for anything. If I could reuse this epoxy, and really what it comes down to, this is set up for one and done. It's 3 tablespoons of epoxy, and so it's really not worth trying to part it out. So we're gonna pour that in there. We're going to be careful of air bubbles. Try to get as many air bubbles out of there as possible. We don't like air bubbles. Mix all that in there, get that hardener going. What else is going on? So far the kit's been kind of chintzy, but the tutorial is actually very worthwhile. So it really does teach you a lot about how to prepare the bike, how to do the epoxy. So that's kind of invaluable. The fact that they have this solution out there, I think it's just very beneficial. So I'm just kind of getting this through here. This brush kind of sucks too. I can see there's losing hairs as I stroke this thing and get it pretty mixed up. You can see it's mixed up now. Got too many air bubbles in there. Just trying to get rid of them now. As you can see, this is where the messy start comes in. You don't want to use too much epoxy. This is just a kind of, I would call a binder. If you're doing a brisket, this is basically what's gonna, or a pork butt, this is what's gonna basically get it to hold. Let it harden a little bit while we're getting the other stuff ready. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dab this on here. Just get this real saturated. Try to hold that fabric together. So maybe you could. If you went down to probably a teaspoon or a half teaspoon and went 3 to 1, you could definitely get 2 carbon repairs out of that. The trick is going to get this thing on there. Okay. Get it real. You want to get every part done just in case. Here's where you don't go lightly. A lot of this is going to come out in the tape, and this is why you tape your bike off. That epoxy likes to run. I'm going to try to keep that seam on the inside of the bike a little bit less visible. I know you're going to sand it down, but in case you give a little bit of a rise, I think the inside will be a little bit better, less noticeable. Okay, so one piece of carbon is laid up now. I'm going to do the big piece. Okay, and that's smoothed out. The edge pieces are good. Wipe my fingers off a little bit. Now for the nasty. We're gonna do that tape. So I think the way I'm gonna do this tape is I'll probably start here maybe. Yeah, wrap it back on itself. Ah, crap. I'm doing about half inch overlays. Oh, it's getting goopy. Oopsie. See, I got some on the other bike there. See, that's why you want to make sure you mask it off. This stuff is messy. One more, I think. Might could have been better. Okay. I'll wipe this down real quick before I put that heat on it. Sitting down pretty quick. Right now I got it about, it's at 7. It's at 7 out of 10 heat-wise. And it's bringing it down pretty quick. Compressing it. You can see it's dripping already. So what we're going to do next is we're going to let this cure for 24 hours. We're done. I'm gonna put the heater on it. I got a little space heater here. I'm gonna put a little blanket on the other side of it so that, like a tinfoil blanket basically, to refract some heat. And then I'm gonna give it 24 hours from now. So basically 1 o'clock tomorrow, we'll unwrap it, sand it down, and take a look at it, see how it looks. So I have cured this. It's now about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I cured this for over 24 hours. We're now gonna undo this. When I was curing it, I made sure the room, I put a space heater in here, had like a little blanket on it, and the frame is still warm. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take off this tape. I wanna see what this feels like here. Better light here. It's kind of hard to see the tape. You would think for heat shrink tape, they would, I guess they want to be able to see through it maybe. I don't know why. It's clear. Makes it kind of tough to see against the carbon. It's usually coming off pretty easy though. I think I may be done with the heat shrink. That might just be all stuff I gotta sand down now. Now let's do a paint test real quick. Let's see how it turned out. Hold on. This will be interesting. Let's make sure our carbon sounds good, right? Oh, baby. That sounds pretty good. That's a whole lot better than it was. I got a lot of sanding down to get that epoxy off. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. Lots of sanding. Been sanding for about, that's not that much actually, about 20 minutes only. I'm now on the 320 grit. So we're just about done now. There was some epoxy that I got away from me a little bit on the back side here, so I had to take the 120 grit and just kind of bring it down a little bit so it's nice and even. But I'll tell you what, wait till you see this. It looks great. Wait till you see this. I'm almost out of water. There we go. Close up here. All right. Let me see if I can. Check that out. That looks really nice. This will taper in real nicely here. It looks dark here, but there's actually you shouldn't see any rise up or anything like that here. Carbon looks real good here. Nice and strong. So cool. I am so happy I did this. I learned something, and I think I just avoided a bigger issue. And I actually got it done in less than a week. So that's huge. I gotta give it up to these guys. I can't wait to paint it, and I'm gonna put like I'm gonna paint it black first, then I'm gonna put a band of white here. I'm gonna put a little medic symbol there. That's my idea. I think it'll turn out real good. All right, it came out really nice here. I'm just gonna give this a quick clean. And then I'm gonna see some of this black spray paint that I had in the garage. Actually matches it. So we'll start with the most vulnerable spot and work our way out a little bit, see how it matches. Nice and clean now. This is flat black. Nice and thin, okay. Let's let that sit for the night. I see a little, honestly, from what I can see right now, I have a little bit of a wave in here. I could clean that up, but that could actually be part of the frame a little bit. It does look pretty good. I'm gonna throw this thing back on the heater and see how it looks in the morning. And then I'll do like a little, I don't know, I may even do the white stripe. If it's that perfect, I may just leave that alone. I kind of want to do the little, maybe it's a little thicker or something like that, but it looks real good. Give you a little zoom in here. It's nice and flat.